Hi friends, welcome to our lesson. I'm Mrs. Gradney, and today in our lesson, we'll be figuring out the degree measure of angles without using a protractor. How do you think we might do that? Are you curious? Well, here's what you'll need for our lesson today. So let's get started. To start, grab one of your ripped pieces of paper, and we're going to do some folding. First, we're going to fold the paper up. Now, I would say in half, but it's not really going to be half because the two parts won't be equal. But fold it up to where the edges kind of meet. And to make sure it's straight, make sure that the edges on the side are lining up. And fold it down and crease it nicely. And now we're also going to fold it from left to right. Again, make sure your edges are lining up and make sure you crease it really well. Now unfold it one fold and run your finger along the horizontal fold. This point here in the middle will be our vertex. So let's draw a point there. What special angle have we created here? It's a straight angle. And what does a straight angle measure? 180 degrees. Great. Now let's fold it in half again from left to right, like we had it earlier. Make sure the edges are lining up. And remember, this is our vertex. Let's draw that point again, just to remind us this is our vertex. Now run your fingers along the folded edges. What angle have we created here? It's a right angle. And what does a right angle measure? 90 degrees. Way to go. Now we're going to fold again. Watch. We're going to fold this vertical side down to meet up with this horizontal side. So let's do it. Fold it down. Make sure these sides meet up. Like that. Make sure you crease it. And now open it back up. Remind me, where's the right angle? Trace it with your finger. Here is our right angle. And so, how many angles did we just decompose the right angle into? We just decomposed the right angle into two angles, this one and this one. What do you notice about these two angles? You may have noticed that these two angles are the same size. They're equal. But how can we tell that they're the same size? Well, when we had the paper folded just now, one angle fit directly on top of the other one, right? So we know they're equal. So then how could we determine the degree measure of each of these angles without using a protractor? Pause the video to think about that and say what you're thinking. Maybe you said, since we know the whole angle equals 90 degrees, we could divide 90 by 2. Or we could think, what number could we add to itself to make 90? 45 plus 45 equals 90, so each of these angles must equal 45 degrees. Pause the video now and write a number sentence to show the sum of these two angles. Then come back and check your work with mine. Welcome back. Let's read the equation. 45 degrees plus 45 degrees equals 90 degrees. Did you remember to include the degree symbol in your equation? That's important to make sure we're being precise. So if you didn't include the degree symbol, make sure you include it. Now let's unfold one time. How many angles do we see now, and what do you notice about them? Pause the video to talk out your thinking. Now we can see 4 angles. 1, 2, 3, 4, all coming together at this vertex, and they're all equal. So pause the video again and write a number sentence that shows the total of all 4 angle measurements. Then come back and check your work with mine. Let's read the equation together. 45 degrees plus 45 degrees plus 45 degrees plus 45 degrees equals 180 degrees. Why does this equation make sense? This equation makes sense because we already said this was a straight angle, which we know measures 180 degrees. We just broke 180 degrees into 4 equal parts. Now, what if we wanted to look at only 3 of the angles together? Draw an arc on your paper to show the angle created by looking at 3 of the smaller angles together. Now, pause the video and write a number sentence that shows the total of the 3 angle measurements. Welcome back. Here are 2 different equations that you may have written, and both of them are correct. Why does each one make sense? Pause the video to talk out your thinking. You may have said the first equation makes sense because we know the degree measure of each of the smaller angles is 45 degrees, and we have 3 of them. The second equation makes sense because we already know that this is a straight angle that measures 180 degrees, which is the same as 4 45-degree angles. So to find the measure of 3 45-degree angles, we could just take away 1 45-degree angle. Nice thinking. Now let's verify our angle measures using our protractor. So in a moment, I'll ask you to pause the video to do this, and here's what you're going to do. You're going to use the straight edge of your protractor and trace along each of the creases. Then label and measure each angle to be sure that our thinking was correct. When you're done, come back and you can compare your work with mine. So, were we correct? Yes, we were correct. Way to go. Now, take your other piece of ripped paper and let's fold it over left to right to form a right angle. Remember to match the sides up. Give it a good crease. Now, where's the right angle that we just formed by folding? Trace it with your finger. Here it is. Here's our right angle. And where's the vertex? The vertex is the corner of the fold. So let's draw a point there. Okay, there's our vertex. Now we're going to fold this vertical side over again, but this time we're not going to make it match the horizontal side, although the fold still needs to go through the vertex. Watch what we're going to do. So we'll fold this vertical side over, but I can't fold it like this because then the fold wouldn't go through the vertex. So I need to keep going down until my fold goes through the vertex. Give it a good crease. And now unfold your paper. Our folds aren't going to look exactly the same, but what do you see? I can see 2 angles, one here and one here. But this time, these 2 angles are not equal. They're not the same size. I can tell that this angle is smaller than this angle. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and do some work. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Use the straight edge of your protractor to draw a segment on the fold by tracing the crease. Then use your protractor to measure each angle and label the angle measures on your paper. Then write a number sentence to show the sum of the 2 angle measures. When you're done, come on back and we'll discuss. Welcome back. Here are 2 examples. Now, your measurements will likely be different than my measurements because we didn't fold exactly the same way, and that's okay. But what did you find, and how do you know you're correct? Let's look at these 2 examples. Let's look at the first one. 29 degrees plus 61 degrees equals 90 degrees. Why does that make sense? Oh, right. That makes sense because we know we started with a 90-degree angle. And the 2 smaller angles add together to make 90 degrees. So that makes sense. Let's look at the second one. 39 degrees plus 54 degrees equals 93 degrees. What are you thinking? I was thinking that too. These 2 smaller angles don't add up to 90 degrees, so this doesn't make sense. If we start with a 90-degree angle and we split it into two parts, those two parts should add together to make the whole, just like when we add or subtract any numbers. So this student likely measured wrong. What about yours? Do your two angles add up to 90 degrees? If not, be sure to pause the video and remeasure your angles and see if you can fix your mistake. Now unfold your paper, and what do you see? Do you see four angles that come together to make a straight angle? One here, 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 and here, and together they create a straight angle. Pause the video now and repeat the process that we just went through with these four angles to find the sum of their measures. Now, will you have to measure each of the angles to be able to do that? No, you won't, because when we folded the paper earlier and folded it like this, we know that the angles that we made on this side will be the same as the angles we made on this side. So pause the video now and do the work. And when you're done, come back and we'll discuss. Welcome back. What did you find is the sum of the four angles? 180 degrees should be the sum. Why does that make sense? That makes sense because the edge of the paper is a straight angle, which we know measures 180 degrees. When we folded the paper, we split that straight angle into parts. And your parts might be different than my parts, but when we add all those parts together, the whole will still be 180 degrees. Look at this figure now. Using what we just learned, how could we find the degree measure of the unknown angle? Pause the video to talk out your thinking. Maybe you were thinking that since we know the measure of the large angle is 90 degrees, and one part of that is 60 degrees, we could subtract. 90 degrees minus 60 degrees equals 30 degrees. So the unknown angle measure is 30 degrees. This reminds me of what we learned in previous lessons. When we know the whole and one part, we can subtract to find the other part. This applies to angles as well. Great thinking. Look at this figure. This is a straight angle. What do we know and what do we need to find out? Well, we know the whole angle measures 180 degrees and part of the angle measures 132 degrees, and we're looking for the other part, the unknown angle. Pause the video and work to determine the value of the unknown angle, and when you're done, come back and check your work with mine. Welcome back. So what's the measure of the unknown angle? X equals 48 degrees. How did you solve it? You may have used the subtraction algorithm like this, or maybe you used a simplifying strategy like this. 180 minus 130, I can do that in my head, that's 50. Then I just have to take away 2 more, so it's 48. Now let's write an equation using X to represent the measure of the unknown angle. Let's start with the known part, which is what? 132 degrees plus X degrees equals, what's the total? 180 degrees. Great job. Look at this figure. How is this angle different than the last two? This straight angle has been split into 3 parts instead of 2. So then how can we solve for the unknown angle? Pause the video and write an equation using X to represent the unknown angle and then solve. I'll be waiting when you get back and you can check your work. Welcome back. Check your work with mine. The unknown angle measure is 105 degrees. How is solving for this unknown angle similar to and different from when we only had 2 angles? It's the same because we still had to subtract the parts we knew from the total. Just this time, we had more parts to subtract. Excellent work today, friends. I think we're ready for the problem set. On the screen are the must-do problems. Work on these problems for 10 minutes, and if you finish early, feel free to try any of the other problems. Today, we solved problems involving unknown angles. Remember to check in with your teacher, and I'll see you next time for another Eureka Math lesson. Bye!